In this first lesson, we will install new project with Laravel. We open up the documentation and installation has quite a lot of information. But interestingly enough, there's no one way to install Laravel and you can find different information on different sources. The official Laravel documentation is mostly based on a tool called Laravel Sail. So for example, if you click Getting Started on macOS, it requires Docker Desktop to be installed, and then you need to run Laravel Sail's sail up command to run your new Laravel project. You can read more about Laravel Sail separately in the documentation and how it works. But this is not what we will do in this course. My personal preference to install Laravel is with Laravel Installer, which existed almost from the very beginning of Laravel. Laravel Sail is pretty recent, newcomer to the scene. From what I remember, it was released with Laravel 8. And the idea here is to use Docker for all the installations. But for me, I preferred old working way, which doesn't require Docker. Again, it's a personal preference and there's no one way to install Laravel, but I will proceed with my personal way. You may like it or not. You may read more about Laravel Sail and those official recommendations on getting started, but I will proceed with installation via Composer. Installation via Composer requires you to have Composer installed on your machine. And generally on your machine you have to have web server, but if you work with PHP before Laravel, I assume you do have web server already. On my MacBook I have and I use Laravel Valet as my preference. Again, there's no one tool here. For Mac people, Laravel Valet and Laravel Sail are probably the most popular choices. For example, if you're on Windows, number one choice from what I've been reading online is Laragon, so you can try that. So you need to have a web server and then you need to install Composer. Composer is a dependency manager for PHP, which means it will install all the dependencies into your project, including Laravel. Laravel is basically just a package on GitHub. It's github.com/laravel/framework, and you can install that into your PHP project with Composer. I will not show how to install Composer because it's already on my machine. You can click Getting Started, and depending on your operating system, you run the commands that are listed in the documentation and configure the Composer. What I will do in this video is install Laravel, so we get back to this, and we install Laravel Installer. Composer Global require Laravel Installer, which I have already run on my computer. So to create a new Laravel project with installer, all I need to do is run Laravel new and then the name of the project, which will be a folder created as a subfolder. So in the terminal, I run Laravel new and let's call our new project project. It will create a project subfolder, and with my Laravel Valet, by default, it will create a domain locally project.test, which I will just run in the browser. So if I run project.test, I have Laravel homepage, currently version Laravel 9.7, and we already have Laravel installed. If we open up PHP Storm with that project, the main file that we will start with in the next lesson is routing. So you have homepage, which leads to welcome file, and welcome file is in the resources views welcome.blade, which contains all the HTML that you can see on this homepage. Now let's dive into the code and see how that welcome page actually works.